The following is an EHC media production. Coming soon to RWT.
So, The Undertaker, the Phenom, versus Triple H at the Super Showdown in Australia.
A new kind of show from a voice you've never heard.
Randy Orton, the Viper, and the Legend Killer. What more do I have to say?
Now that she has arrived, the podcast evolution has begun.
My name is Moni, and I'd like to welcome you to Wrestling Nerd Chick Podcast.
EWA.
Do you play WWE 2K18 on the PS4? Would you like to play against other like-minded players in a very unique online league that's unique because we are more committed to storylines than just a straight-up competitive league. The league is still very competitive, but we also try to run things like a bit of a TV show. Check out the YouTube channel and the Facebook page in the description below if you're interested.
The following program contains scenes of violence. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to the RWT Podcast.
Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen of the RWT family. My name is, of course, Emir Blackbane Costello, and I'd like to welcome you to the RWT Podcast. My goodness, it is good to be doing this show, man. It's been a crazy couple of days, couple weeks. I don't know. My computer's gone down and I got it back up. Still talking about the computer, by the way. I have to say things like that for Paul Morales. Anyways, I got backed up on some shows. So over the next few days, we're going to have some shows coming at you from Brian Green, the host of WinXT, and Moses Marquez, the host of Smack Talk, and his New Japan show that he does, which does have a name. I just can't think of it right now. But I think it's like the Major League. I don't know why the Major League show is what's sticking in my head, but I think his new title has something to do with Tag Nation. I will figure it out. But anyhow, we're a little bit backlogged on that, and so some of the shows that you hear this week won't necessarily be from this week, but still, great listens. It's worth it to go back and listen. Also, we're going to be, I've created a YouTube channel for RWT specifically. I usually upload these shows to my personal YouTube channel, and I've just realized that if I'm going to have a real podcast network, which is what I've been trying to build over here, it makes sense for it to have its own thing, a separate entity from my personal YouTube page. So RWT officially has its own YouTube page, and I will be posting the link in the group for everybody to go and subscribe. Please go subscribe and support, man. And it'll make it easier if you ever want to be listening to some RWT shows that you haven't had a chance to catch up on. You'll be able to go to one location, one place, and catch up on all that stuff at the same time. The time is 5:56, and in 4 minutes, my guest for today will be calling in. And his name, of course, is Mr. Coshawn Perkins. One of the newer members to the page. Well, he's been around for a couple months now, and he has been contributing and doing his part to make RWT the best wrestling group on Facebook, brother. So it's going to be a pleasure to interview him and talk with him about how he became a wrestling fan and what he thinks of wrestling, what it does for him. Also, we'll get into a little bit of news, and we're going to play a game of Who Wrote That Tweet. And I know people always like playing along at home with that. So yes, that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back in 2 minutes with Mr. Coshawn Perkins, right here on the RWT Podcast.
Your eyes have never been busier. There's just so much to see, stream, play, pin, swipe. We're here to give your eyes the mid-marathon refreshment they need so you can stay tuned in, plugged in, all in.
What makes true greatness? Taking no shortcuts? Or is it written in our DNA?
Genetically superior.
Is it the commitment we sacrifice?
She was bred to be a champion.
Or is it the beat of our heart? What makes true greatness? Nurture or nature?
Now, only at Toys R Us.
All new WWE, a cell cage, is massive and fully playable. Enter the cage store for extreme action. Now climb the giant ring cage, rumble above the ring, slam through the trap door. Oh no, the catapult, jump off the rope, you win. Get WWE, the cell cage at 2 figures, accessories sold separately.
You can get it now, but only at Toys R Us, the world's greatest toy store.
Welcome back to the RWT Podcast. It's Emir Blackbane Costello. By the way, if you didn't know, that music that was playing just now was brought to you by Robert Davis, who apparently knows how to play the Cactus Jack theme song on the guitar. He's a beast, and if you haven't seen the video on the RWT page, go back and check that out, man. It's definitely worth a listen. That guy is incredibly talented. But enough about Robert, the king of RWT. Let's talk about the man of the hour, my special guest who has been gracious enough to join me on the show here today. And his name is Mr. Coshawn Perkins. Coshawn, how are you doing tonight, my man?
Man, I'm good, man. First time ever on this podcast. It sounds very interesting, and finally I'm on here, feeling good. Have a group on here that talks about wrestling day in, day out, old school, new school. Been watching wrestling since I was a kid. Pretty much this is like beyond dope, and I'm very glad to be on here.
Well, you know what? I appreciate you, man, and your enthusiasm. It means the world to me. And I gotta say, you sound a lot different than I expected. Like, your profile picture, you kind of look like a kid to me. And I don't know how old you are. And now that I think of it, based on the way that you sound, I don't know what part of the country you live in. But I live in California. Like, where are you located?
I'm located in California myself.
You sound like you could be in, like, Louisiana or something.
No. Well, actually, my mom, she was from Alabama. I was born here. So, I guess I picked up her accent. Some people say that.
Yeah, that's possible. Because if you grew up hearing things, I've always wondered, like, how do accents work? And I think this is what it comes down to. When you're a kid, you're not yourself. All you are is like a combination of everybody that you come into contact with, because all kids do is mimic what they see other people doing. And so that's why, in my mind, that's why if you're born in New York, you sound like a New Yorker. And if you're born in California, you sound like, because all you're doing is just mimicking how you hear other people talk. So if your mom is from Alabama, but you heard her voice most of the time, it makes sense to me that you would sound like you were from, that part of the country.
Oh, well, I ain't never been down there a day of my life. The first time I ever been down south was like in Texas. I was like back at the end of May, beginning of June. But the first time I was out there, it was a great experience. Food is great. Everything made, homemade from scratch and everything else. But otherwise, I enjoyed it down there for the week I was down there.
Here's the thing about Alabama, man, and down south and everything. There's a huge, like, history of wrestling down south, in Memphis and all those the old territories and stuff like that. It's probably where wrestling was born. To be honest, I'll have to research statements like that before I just throw them out there. But oh well, it's my show and I did it. So fact check me later.
Well, hey, it was anything goes. Hell, I never knew it started from down that way. Far as I know, I mean, like I said, the kids started watching wrestling. My first time was WWE back, well, not WWE, well, WWE now, but back then it was WWF. You know, Hogan, Don Magnificent, Morocco, Ultimate Warrior, Bob Orton. You know, wrestlers like that. And then once I got into, I was so heavy into it, I had to see more of wrestling. It couldn't just been. Back then, it was Superstars Wrestling on Saturdays, and on Sunday was Wrestling Challenge. So it was just pretty much, I had the hands-on. Then I was, then I had next-door neighbors that was watching NWA/WCW, which is Ric Flair, the Four Horsemen, Barry Windham, Kendall Windham, Arn Anderson, Kelly Blanchard, stuff like that. And just from there on, it was just there. Then even more was like even Lucha Libre, like 4 in the evening on a Sunday afternoon. I just couldn't get enough of it. It was just, I just enjoyed wrestling.
So your guy, you probably started watching late 80s, early 90s, something like that?
Well, I say like this. I was born in I say maybe late 70s. Right, well, yeah, pretty much there, but I just started noticing stuff like in the 80s. So, like you said, I started watching wrestling like in the 80s, 90s, and it's like from what it was till now, it's a pretty crazy turnaround. I mean, it's like wrestling, it's cool, but it's just...
No, you don't have to, hang on now. Now, hang on, brother. Now, here's the thing. We could keep it real on the show. Listen, you're like me, man. I'm an 80s baby. I started watching wrestling probably 1990 because I was like 4 years old at that point. And so I all those guys you named, I know those names. You understand? I grew up watching those guys. Also, at that age, they had me, Koshawn. You understand? I believed everything that was happening in front of me was real. So I grew up like terrified of the Undertaker, or that one. There was a match one time between.
Who was it? I know I was.
Yeah. The remember the Mountie? He had that red, and then he fought against Big Boss Man. And I remember one time he came out with this like stick that I guess was like he was using to shock the Big Boss Man. And Boss Man sold it so well. Every time Mountie put that stick on him, he started shaking like he was having a seizure. Brother, I was in the house. My heart was broken. I was like, he's hurting him. Like I felt so bad for the Boss Man. I was like, why would they let this happen? Why isn't anybody helping that man?
Well, I mean, it's things, back then, to be honest, wrestling, I mean, I understand they say as it was fake, but to me back then, even probably before I was born, I did my research, just before even internet and Google and all this stuff, to me, it was real back then because, like when you get hurt, like, you really got hurt. It wasn't no such thing as, you get hit across the head, and all of a sudden you have a package of red blood, fake blood, ketchup, or whatever they call it, and then, like, you all of a sudden bust it open. No, like literally, like you said, it was, like, 90s, 80s, I say majority of the 80s, I say really people really was getting hurt, but they had to go on with the show like they do now. It wasn't too much of people wasn't ODing and just popping pills to keep that going, because everybody, when you hurt, you had to go with it. It was physical. It wasn't too many people overdosing on pills and drugs and stuff like that, but it was an ongoing thing, and I mean, I loved it. I ain't gonna even front. At one time, I stopped watching wrestling at one time. At point, when you found out it was fake and you kept on thinking it was real and people was trying to hurt your feelings, and it was one match. I don't know who it was. The opponent got on top of the turnbuckle, and the opponent that was laying down on the ground, he scooted over, and I'm like, I had stopped watching wrestling for a while. So I was disappointed. Then, it was a pretty much of a gap. Then I got back into it. So it was AWA, which it was Jerry Lawler, Magnum TA, you know, and World Class Championship Wrestling, which it was the Von Erich, Kerry, Mike Von Erich, Fritz Von Erich, you know, like all of them, and like the Missing Link, Adrian Adonis, Dustin Rhodes before he became Goldust. Then the Undertaker, before he became the Undertaker, he was Mean Mark Calloway.
Mark Calloway. Yeah, man.
Yes.
Some of these guys, that's the thing about the rich history. You understand, some of the guys that are in our group, they were born like, some of these guys, when I start talking about, if you say Hulk Hogan, everybody knows who that is. But like you said, Don Morocco, there's a lot of guys in our group who don't know that name, or they never heard the Mountie, because that wasn't their era. I know people who started watching wrestling when John Cena started wrestling. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so they never really got to see the good stuff. And then the thing about it is, if you started watching wrestling during the PG era, let's say, if you can't go back and watch the old stuff because the footage is so grainy compared to what you're used to seeing, and also the wrestlers back then, if you go back and watch these old matches, which I'm sure you do because you sound like you love it, you realize they moved a lot slower back then. There was nobody diving through the ropes or flying up. Do you understand? It was a lot slower than today's product, and it was a whole different style. It was a lot of like grappling and submissions and that kind of stuff. So I don't think that people who watch wrestling today, unless like me and you who grew up watching it, so when I watch the old stuff, it's fun. For me, it just brings back fond memories. But if I had never seen that stuff, I would have difficulty going back to watch it, I think.
You know what? I understand even some of the like the newer generation, because like you said, everybody was slow grappling, you know. But just like by being slow back then how they was just like, you know, slow drop kicking, fake body slamming, some of that stuff, and some of that stuff went wrong, and some people really hurt themselves, and just like, it made me look slow, but some people that was wrestling way back then that lived to tell the stories of what happened with them when they was sitting up there getting body slam, clothesline, or whatnot. And then what was the thing that used to trip me out was that back then, you know how I guess like wrestlers, they know everybody knows everybody get along with everybody, from what I was told. I don't know if it was true or not, but even on when they have they documentaries, they said wrestlers back then, even before my time, really wasn't hanging out like that. You know what I'm saying? Like when they didn't like you, like they didn't like you. You know what I'm saying? So it was just, different when I was.
There's two sides to that coin. Okay, here's the first thing. Kayfabe existed back then, right? This is at a time where, as we're discussing, you and I, that most people didn't understand that wrestling was just a work. So it meant so much to them to preserve that, because that was their livelihood. You can't let the secret get out, otherwise people stop making money. So you understand, when the boys would go on the road, they would book all the faces, all the good guys at one hotel, and then all the bad guys would get booked at a separate hotel down the road. You couldn't be seen let's say you're a heel, because you sound like a bad dude, Koshawn, and I sound like the smiley face, right? But you and I in real life were best friends. Well, we can't go grab a burger together down at the McDonald's, because if a wrestling fan is there and they go, "What do we have here? What are these two guys doing together? I just saw you kill that guy on TV," and then they find out. So that was the reasoning. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not suggesting that some people didn't have legit heat with other people, because if you look at that rivalry with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart and you listen to them break it down, they was going off script, and they were really taking shots at each other about each other's personal lives, bringing up each other's wives and stuff, and Shawn Michaels suggesting that Bret Hart was cheating on his wife with Sonny. They got crazy with it. But also, even some of those guys who really were friends, if they fell on opposite sides of the fence with the face and heel dynamic, they were not allowed to be seen together in public, period.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, you got a point that I didn't really think about that kind of stuff, because I mean, as a kid, like shit, it's just with that. It's just, I mean, and I used to think, okay, like they don't go out and all that stuff and hang out like you said, and it was just like wrestling. It was just, it took me to like a whole nother level as a kid because I had to have more of it from AWA, NWA / WCW, UWF, which to me, I never realized, it didn't dawn on me till like some time ago, like when I had started watching UWF, which was the first time I seen Jim Ross. Then I started seeing Ric Flair, Sting. I'm like, if this is UWF, then they have NWA, then WCW. This is the whole, this within the same company, within the same people. You know what I'm saying? But they just had different associations to me, and I just feel, I thought it was just all the same because everybody wrestled against everybody except for WWF at that time, because when it was like I said, WCW, NWA, AWA, when it was Jerry Lawler versus Ric Flair, Sting versus Rugged Rodney Garvin. No, I'm saying wrestlers I never heard of. Okay, my bad. It's a beautiful thing because I had, after once I found out what wrestling when it was coming on, I had a set schedule. Like Monday night at the time had cable, Prime, WWF Prime. I think it was called Prime Time, which it was Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan.
Rest in peace to both of those guys, by the way.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, those are the ones I really grew up off of as commentary. I never realized how funny they was till I got older. So it's just like I go back on stuff and listen to what they say about each other, and and especially with Bobby. It took a real toll on him once he found out Gorilla Monsoon had passed away, because I was just on YouTube, just looking for like wrestling matches for like old school stuff. Then they had one where when it was Bobby the Brain and Tony Schiavone, and Bobby the Brain Heenan, gave his respect to Gorilla Monsoon, and then after what he said, and you can see and you can hear it in his voice, he started like crying, and it's just like, damn, it was sad. And then like I was saying before, I had like a set schedule. Prime, WWF Prime Time, then that was Monday night. Tuesday was NWA on KDOC Channel 56. What was that? Saturday night Saturday afternoon was Superstars of Wrestling, then UWF, then turned to TBS. It was Superstation, like WCW, stuff like that. I mean, I couldn't get enough of that kind of stuff, and I'm glad I was just into it, and I love it for what it is. But it's totally different than now. We in the PG era, which is like
hey, I could tell you're not a fan.
Like the PG era remind me of the golden era, which is it. Like the golden era was like you said, started off slow. They didn't really like do a high flies, but the difference between that the PG era is like you can see what they do, and just everything is going wrong, and it's just like it's slow. It's fast, but for what it does, it goes slow because you can see what they do, and everything just goes wrong, and it ain't the same like it was. That's just me.
No, yeah, I agree, man, and that's why a lot of times you'll hear. I mean, if you look online, you'll see that a lot of the veterans of wrestling, these bona fide Hall of Famers, they get on social media and they're very critical of today's product. But I think where they come from is like, back in our day, it wasn't acceptable to not know your craft. It wasn't acceptable to not be good on the mic. It wasn't acceptable to to when a guy, me and you are wrestling a match, you've got me knocked down, and you go for a cover. Why is the camera showing me looking up at the referee so I can make sure I kick out at 2? So you understand? Back in the day, those guys didn't have to watch the referee's hand. They felt it. They knew when the hand came down 1, the hand came down 2, and they knew how to time it just right where they would kick out before 3. But if you watch SmackDown Live, you're going to see Randy Orton lying on his back, looking up at the referee. The camera's right on his face. So when you're at home, you go, well, this match isn't over, because when the match is over, that's when he doesn't look at the referee. And then you know, well, he's not looking back this time, so that must have been the end. But we shouldn't be able to anticipate that. Like, know your craft, man. Get it together, because presumably most of these wrestlers became wrestlers because they grew up idolizing the Hulk Hogans and the Macho Man Randy Savages and you know, Rowdy Roddy Piper and stuff like that. But what comes with that idolization is preserve what they created, man. Preserve the craft. Be as good or better. Don't find your way into this business and bring it down. You're supposed to elevate it.
Yeah, you can't tell Roman Reigns there, my bad.
Roman Reigns.
I mean, I don't have nothing against the kid, you know. I mean, his his family. I watched his family like the
Wild Samoans.
The Wild Samoans, the Head Shrinkers. You know what I mean? They knew how to wrestle.
Haku. Ooh, that boy was that was the craziest. Haku was, everybody knew that was the toughest son of a bitch that ever wrestled of all time.
You know what I mean? Dude.
Hi, Chief Peter Maivia.
Man. And it's, I'm like, I ain't got nothing against these wrestlers. I mean, it's just, like you say, know your craft, because it's a difference when you got pinned. I mean, you know when to jump up out of 2. You didn't have to sit there and look at the camera. Just act like you down. Be down. And you know when to get up, just get up. Don't look up at the camera. It's only obvious. You know what I'm saying? And it's just, I mean, I ain't got nothing against Randy Orton. To me, I like Randy Orton when he was here, when it was Ted DiBiase Jr. and Cody Rhodes. He was bad then. It was just, you should know your craft like your dad.
Legacy, man.
Bob Orton.
Yeah, but Cowboy Bob Orton. Yeah, that's the thing. And Legacy was a great group. I think guys like Orton, he's gotten high praise for his in-ring work, because he is fluid. You know, when he does it, it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, but also he has a history of having a poor attitude, and if he cared a little bit more, he wouldn't look up at the referee when the referee's doing the damn count. Come on, Orton.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, well, today's wrestling is pretty much cartoony, washed up, but I mean, hey, I you know what? Well, I kind of felt off now. I'm slowly but surely trying to get into the New Japan wrestling and like other wrestling, because I fell out big time. I mean, I know there's others ROH, you know what I'm saying? I just don't look at it because I don't know. I just got to remind myself, okay, there's other wrestling besides WWE when it makes you mad and it's full of bullshit. So
yeah, that's the thing. WWE needs they need competition, and I'm telling you, in the indies and stuff like that, in independents, there's a ton of great wrestling happening. In NXT, there's a lot of great wrestling happening. But speaking of wrestling today, how about we do a little bit of news?
Time to do the news. Time to do the news.
All right, man. We have some news I'm sure everybody's heard about at this point. Coming out of wherever Rich Swann was, at approximately 12 a.m. on Sunday morning, the 26-year-old WWE superstar was detained in Aluka County, Florida, and charged with kidnapping and false imprisonment of an adult. Details have emerged, and the adult in question is Swann's wife of 9 months, and of course she's also an independent wrestler named Sue Young. And I'm not sure if that's her real name or if this next name is maybe her wrestling name, but in parentheses they have Vanara Riggs, so I'll have to figure that out later. A police report would surface later Sunday morning that revealed quite an ugly episode, one involving Riggs being drugged via headlock into a car while clearly resisting. WWE wrestler Rich Swann was released, however, from Ockaloosa County Jail in Gainesville, Florida, yesterday with the stipulation that he refrained from any direct or indirect hostile contact with his wife, independent wrestler Vanara Riggs. That basically means that Swann is able to be with Riggs, but he cannot engage in any sort of confrontation with her. Swann also has to be in touch with the court services within 24 hours of his release, but no court hearing as of yet has been set, though a judge has been assigned to his case. As far as WWE status, a spokesperson for the company pointed us to the company's domestic abuse policy, which automatically suspends any talent who is charged with such an offense. And if Swann is convicted, the company will terminate him immediately, as per their zero tolerance policy. Coshawn Perkins, you've just heard all the facts of the Rich Swann case. What say you, my man?
Oh man, it's crazy because I just saw this dude last week. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden he's in a domestic dispute, and it took me for a doozy. You know what I mean? And I'm like, I don't know how people can get in the business of sports, period, and the stuff that you love, and all of a sudden you get in trouble. Then it can just cost you your livelihood, and it's just crazy. I'm just hope he just win this, man, and just get back to do what he loves. You know, I mean, he was homeless, and you made it to I can say mainstream. You know what I'm saying? And all of a sudden you get into some kind of sort of trouble, and then all of a sudden you can just lose it by the blinking of an eye. You know, and it's just I just hope he just. Once he beat this, he'll learn his lesson not to get in trouble like that again, you know.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, so this is what the media does. And by the way, I'm not trying to... Anybody that hears this, I'm not trying to minimize domestic violence. And also, I'm not sticking up for Rich Swann on the basis that he's a black man and I'm a black guy too. I just want you to look at the facts of the case. And here are the facts. The media goes... domestic violence, and in our mind automatically says, well, he punched her, he choked her, he threw her through the window. Like, when we hear domestic violence, we think all these crazy things happened, but the actual story is they were driving, they got into an argument. When the car came to a stop, his wife jumped out of the car. He asked her to get back in the car. She didn't want to. He put her in a headlock. The reason why I'm laughing is because she's a wrestler. So do you understand? Like, this isn't. He put her in a headlock, yes, and forcibly put her back into the car. But Rich Swann, he doesn't come like. But they're two wrestlers. I mean, this is just like, I'm gonna put you in this maneuver. I mean, he could have also put her in the sharpshooter, and I'm just saying, he put her in a wrestling maneuver to put her back in the car rather than leave her in the middle of wherever because she was upset. Now, proof that this man didn't try to kill his wife or anything like that, it's like, not only is he released from jail, but then the thing is, his only instruction from the court and from the police is, just don't have an argument with her. So it's not like there's a restraining order. He doesn't have to leave the house and be homeless again. None of that. His only direction from the judge and from the police is, you are not allowed to have an argument with her. So that's further proof that it wasn't like he beat her up or something like that. But Coshawn, how those narratives go. They just kind of like use a generalized label, and everybody freaks out and goes, damn, Rich Swann, I had no idea, except for these NFL athletes, they're beating their wives like crazy. These NFL athletes are trying to kill their wives. I don't think Rich Swann is that guy. And also, WWE didn't terminate him. They suspended him. But we've seen this stuff. Remember Adam Rose?
Yeah.
Yeah, he slapped his wife around. I think he really slapped his wife. And then WWE was like, nah, you got to go and take your rosebuds with you. Except for Braun. Braun got to stay. But there's the clear-cut difference. Once the facts of the case have been heard, Nobody needs to lose their job because they put their wife, who's also a wrestler, in a headlock. And also, if we're being fair, why doesn't she know how to reverse a headlock? I'm just saying.
Right. You got a point. You got a point.
You're an indie wrestler. If you reverse the headlock and do the drop toe hold and then get away from him if you need to. I'm sorry. Somebody's gonna boycott my show for me saying that.
Well, hey, it was worth talking about, though, because it doesn't make no sense. But hey, what we got to say? Hey, we wasn't there, but it just doesn't make sense what you said. But what we say?
How about another story that's gaining a lot of attention right now? And this is coming from Raja.com. I'm sure everybody's seen it where they've seen it, but this copy is straight from Raja. New Japan Pro Wrestling shot an angle between Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega at their World Tag League Finals show as the build to their Alpha versus Omega match at Wrestle Kingdom 12. Omega and the Young Bucks defeated Rocky Romero, Sho and Yo at the show after the match. A new video of Jericho aired, and in the video, Jericho congratulated Omega and asked if he's ready for their showdown next month in Tokyo at the Tokyo Dome. Of course, he promised he was going to beat the hell out of Omega, and then from there, Jericho appeared. And I don't know if you saw the video yet, Koshawn, but he pretty much kicked Kenny Omega's ass and left him in a bloody heap of mess.
I didn't see that part. Far as what I had posted earlier when he came in there and busted him up, but beforehand, I have not seen that part, so I don't know what to say about that.
Well, here's one thing before I ask you this question is, if you're Jericho and you just got to beat up Kenny Omega, who's arguably the best wrestler in the world right now, like I think him and AJ Styles are two guys that are definitely in that conversation. But not only did you get to beat up Kenny Omega in New Japan Wrestling, but you got to make him bleed. And you understand Jericho has just come from his last run with WWE that lasted well over a year, where blood is not allowed. Like if a guy drops a little bit of blood, everything stops. The president has to make a statement about it. All kinds of emergency personnel rushes the ring to put a Band-Aid on the guy's tiny cut. But he got to go to New Japan and bust the guy open clean and then wipe the blood on his own face. Are you excited for this match, sir?
Am I excited? Yeah, but at the same time, I'm not, because like you said, you just brought something to the forefront with me, because I haven't seen blood in WWE in quite some time. Before then, and last time somebody got busted up was Randy Orton by Brock Lesnar, and they had to stop the match. And even before then and after that, they have not had no kind of matches where blood was shown. And then all of a sudden you get to Japan and you bust up the best guy in the world. And it's just, well, I don't know, man. I don't know what to say about that.
See, that's a reminder of things work differently outside of the WWE. See, WWE, they have to, they got their shareholders to worry about. Vince McMahon's got to worry about what the shareholders would think. They can't be thinking that wrestling is the circus act that it used to be, where Vince McMahon is, sticking his face in every diva's titties, and there's all kind of craziness happening. Like, they have to be a respectable company now, and so that's why you know Paul Morales. You see him on the page, right?
Yeah.
And Tony Kirkendall, you see that guy on the page.
Yeah.
On a regular basis, those guys will tweet Vince McMahon and basically just destroy him via Twitter. Like, you're terrible, your product sucks, your wife is ugly. I don't know. They just say a bunch of. I mean, they just.
I just seen the stuff that they tweet. I mean, it's like Vince used to do all that kind of stuff, and I guess when he started getting sued and everything, he had to turn down everything, because keep in mind, everything used to be turned up. Attitude Era was off the chain. It was just every week you used to expect what was going to happen next, and just like all of a sudden he started getting sued left and right, and they started getting down his neck, and it's like he had to calm down. That's where the PG-13 era came in.
Yeah, man. So a guy like Paul Morales, I believe, there's the first RWT podcast that I did with him, he talks about, I believe he went to like the first 3 WrestleManias, or at least the first 2. that were ever in existence. So just like yourself and like myself, he comes from an old school era. So you can, I mean, surely you can understand and relate to why he's so irritated with today's product.
Yeah. I understand.
What's the solution, man? Like, how do you, if somebody said, Mr. Perkins, we're going to sit you in, we're going to take you to the WWE offices in Hartford, Connecticut. We're going to get you in a room in front of Vince McMahon, in front of all the head writers, and we're going to give you 5 minutes to tell us how to fix WWE. What's your pitch? What do you say to them?
My pitch, well, let me see, how can I say it? What it was is that y'all not even hot no more. Is this y'all need to bring this bring it back to the forefront like it used to be, like in the Attitude Era. I mean, if it comes to the point where it take chances like he was doing back then, go ahead, take a chance. I mean, it ain't gonna hurt. Well, it's gonna hurt, but I understand you ain't trying to lose money like that, but it ain't gonna hurt once in a while. Just to give some kind of excitement and just make WWE fans happy again, like what it was back then. Even in my time when I was a kid and everybody else before. I mean, even back then till now, it's like everything is very kiddish. And it's like, and sometimes I even have Raw and SmackDown sitting up in my DVR box and I just delete. So it's just like, y'all need to step y'all game up. Or y'all will be
obsolete.
Delete.
Man. The man.
I mean, cut you off. Go ahead, man.
I was gonna say, speaking of being woken and speaking to the deities and all that, help me understand who truly is best for business. Is it Meek Man or is it the man with 3 H's? Who do you think should have full control?
At one time and point, it was what you said, full control. You know, it was just, it is what it is, but I think it's, ooh, man, that's a hard one.
I mean, look at, okay, you got Vince McMahon, right, who's, here's the problem with Vince McMahon. He, like JBL, Vince McMahon truly is a wrestling god. And when you are a wrestling god, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Also, you're the only person who's ever had a good idea in your mind. So it's kind of like you get the final say. These wrestlers now, especially when they leave the company, they're starting to come out and talk about, like, I wanted to do this. I want to do things this way. And Vince said no. And Vince said do this. And I'm finding out little by little by listening to all the podcasts with Jericho and JR who interview these wrestlers. Not every idea Vince has had has been great. And not only that, he has shot down some fantastic ideas. But also he's Vince McMahon. He's the most creative mind that's ever existed in wrestling. We can't take that from him. But then you have Triple H, who is under the tutelage of Vince McMahon. And even when he was a wrestler, every old school wrestler before him will tell you, that kid asked question after question. He'd learned the business. He knew his craft. He worked harder than anybody. He stayed clean. Like CM Punk, he was straight edge. He didn't do drugs. He didn't drink. He didn't, like Triple H, all he cared about was like, let me learn more about wrestling. But still, people have questioned a lot of his decisions and accused him of burying talent and stuff like that. So I just got to know, man, like, in your opinion, if you had to choose between Vince and Triple H, who do you think should just flat out have full control in WWE?
I mean, how you sat there and explained, I mean, you have Triple H. Work hard, great wrestler. He runs things now, and he shoots down talent. The key word, talent. Then you have Vincent McMahon. the man of great ideas. Keyword, great ideas. Matter of fact, you know what? I mean, Triple H, A.K. Paul, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. You're a dope wrestler. Good for business sometimes. You know, you shoot down talent, but I'd rather roll with, because it looked like this. Vincent, he's smart. He know what to roll with, and he shoots down ideas, but he doesn't shoot down talent. Then you have Triple H. I don't think he shoots down ideas, but he shuts down talent. And that's the thing that get me with Triple H. It's like he knows what he's doing, but he doesn't know what he's doing. Because it's like, I don't know if it's true or not, Dolph Ziggler is on his way out. And I hate to see, I've been watching this dude for years. And he is on his way out. And it's like, they pushing him, but it's like they give up on the push on Dolph Ziggler. And I hate that. You know what I'm saying? He's not a bad wrestler at all. But if he leaves, I feel he needs to go to ROH or Japan, where he'll be getting recognition that he needs and he gets. Sorry. I roll with Vince.
All right, so there it is, man. And you know what? I think a lot of people would probably come to that conclusion. Not Paul Morales, not Tony Kirkendall, but there are some people who would go, you know what? In spite of the way things are, Vince has got us this far, and Vince is the guy that's right for business. And I think we're going to pose that question on the page after this podcast, and we'll just I'll create a poll, and I just kind of want to see where everybody's at with it. I'll make sure that I tag you in it. But as we're winding down here, we got probably about 10 minutes left in the show. You want to play a game? Yeah, that's a perfect segue from Triple H. It's time to play. It's time to play the game. There's a game I want to play with you that's called Who Wrote That Tweet? How about we jump into it?
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I read some tweets that I have vetted, and you can guess which wrestler said it. Just talk to me. Just talk to me. Yeah, you'll hear the tweet and you'll guess who. I'll help you out, give you some clues. Just talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Talk to me, just talk to me. Talk to me, just talk to me.
Who wrote that tweet?
All right, Koshawn, this game is called Who Wrote That Tweet? And it is a game where I read to you some tweets that have been written by one WWE superstar, but I don't tell you who it is. And then I give you three choices, and you have to try to guess. Just use some reasonable deduction here based on the way it was written. Who do you think wrote the tweet? So I have three tweets for you tonight, okay? All right, here's the first tweet. It goes, "Happy Thanksgiving. I'm experiencing my first traditional Thanksgiving dinner tonight. I can't wait." Okay, so this is a grown adult WWE superstar who is actually having Thanksgiving dinner for the first time in their life. So I need you to tell me, Koshawn, was this tweet written by Billy Kay? Was it written by Aleister Black? Or was it written by Kyrie Singh?
So keep on telling me.
It's tough. Man. It's tough. But, you got Kyrie Singh, she's from Japan, right?
Yeah.
Do they celebrate Thanksgiving in Japan? I don't know.
Not that I know of.
Aleister Black, I'm not certain, but I don't know why. I think he may be Canadian. I can't figure out what he is.
That's what's going in my mind right now is Aleister Black.
Billy Kay, either her or Peyton Royce are from Australia. One of them is from. Also, what adult hasn't had Thanksgiving dinner, man? So I don't know, man. Who wrote that tweet?
I think I'll go with Billy Kay.
What made you choose Billy, after all?
Because it's just because I mean it would I mean it's I can't say it sound corny. I'm really laughing at this because who would really truly will and will put some up there like that? That's something you're supposed to keep to yourself. Like you ain't never had sex before. It was Billy K. I think it was Billy K that said that.
Okay, man. Well, let me tell you. You are absolutely correct. It was Billy K that wrote that tweet. Spot on, my man. That was good.
Oh, wow. That was dope. Who would just say, okay, this is my first experience of having turkey, and I'm about to stuff myself. But I mean... So it's crazy to me, and still I'm trying to keep from laughing so hard because it's funny as hell. Somebody will put that on Twitter, but hey, what I'd say, that's them. Better than them to me.
That's social. Dude, people share. You wouldn't believe the amount of things, obviously, that people share. It's kind of like they forget that the whole internet is reading this. They just kind of like their life becomes an open book. But hey, man, here's the second tweet for you, and it goes like this. I had an hour-long ride where me and a colleague discussed the original Mortal Kombat film glowingly and monopolized the conversation. Nobody else in the car spoke. So we have a superstar here who's saying they spent a long car ride with one of their friends talking about the first Mortal Kombat movie, and nobody else in the car was even interested in the conversation. And nobody else really spoke at all, so perhaps they irritated the other people that were along for the ride. And so I gotta know, in your opinion, who wrote that tweet about Mortal Kombat? Was it Xavier Woods? Was it Cody Rhodes? Or was it TJ Perkins?
Oh, damn. Okay, let me see. Cody Rhodes wouldn't even be that kind of type of to talk about Mortal Kombat. Oh man!
TJ Perkins, he's got that. His entrance video was all about video games, right?
Yeah. Then again, I look at Xavier Woods because I mean this dude, I don't know if you ever watched Swerve. He liked to play pranks on people and stuff like that, and then I probably pretty much say he played games too, but then again, I would go with TJ Perkins.
Yeah, Xavier Woods has got his whole gaming channel, up, down, down. All he does is play video games. So you're going to go with TJ Perkins, TJP, correct?
Yes.
Well, wouldn't you know, Mr. Coshawn, that tweet was written by Cody Rhodes.
Get the hell out of here.
I'm telling you, Cody Rhodes wrote that tweet.
Hell no. I mean, okay, Lord forgive me for judging, but dude, there is no way. Because he don't even look like the type that talk about video games like that. But then again, y'all never know. You got a lot of gamers in the world today because, I mean... It's just, you would never know it. I would never suspect Cody Rhodes to be the one that talk about Mortal Kombat and everybody else is just like not paying attention to him.
Exactly.
Because if I was in the car with him, I would have kept up that conversation with him because I like Mortal Kombat. But I guess since I wasn't in that car, nobody wasn't paying attention to him. Hey.
Yeah, I don't think he was too happy about it. And then his wife commented something after the fact. Let's see, what did she write? He said, and at Brandy Rhodes later told me it was so annoying that she wanted to blow her brains out. That's how annoyed his wife was with him talking about Mortal Kombat for the whole car ride, which is hilarious. One last one for you, Coshawn. And this goes back to when we were talking about before how some people who are no longer in the WWE can kind of sit around and complain about it, or maybe some of the veterans from back in the day don't really like the product as much because they remember how things were for them back in the day. But listen to this tweet. It says, I guess the announcers aren't that excited about Jordan Strowman. Total no-sell. Hey, Corey, Pee Wee Herman called, and he wants his suit back. Hashtag Tool. So this person, not only is this person criticizing the Jason Jordan-Braun Strowman match, but then this person goes directly at Corey Graves and says, Pee Wee Herman called and he wants his suit back, you tool. Was this tweet written by... Oh, wait, hang on. We got some static. All right. Was this tweet written by Eric Bischoff? Was it written by Ryback? Or was it written by Vince Russo?
You know what? I mean, Eric Bischoff, he shoots at people, but he ain't gonna talk about nobody's suits. Then you have Ryback. I mean, he all
the big guy.
The big guy. Hey, I eat hot dogs and stuff like that. Then you have Russo. He don't give a damn if it's a newborn. He's gonna shoot on them. So I think it's Russo.
Well, let me tell you something, Koshawn. Your powers of deduction have worked out marvelously tonight because that tweet was written by Vince Russo. Good job, man.
It was?
That's right.
Because, I be seeing tweets, but I don't even read tweets like that. I just, when I'm in the group, I just look at what everybody else posts and comment, but like when it comes to tweets and stuff like that, I see Vince Russo here and there, because that's Vince Russo. He gonna say what he gonna say to the day he dies. So, but I can see Vince Russo saying something like that, though.
Yeah, it was definitely him, man. And for the game of who wrote that tweet, you got 2 out of 3, so that's a pretty good score. Congratulations to you, brother.
Oh, wow.
So as we wind down, man, I just got one final question before I let you go. This might touch on your memory a little bit, but I gotta know, and I like to ask this of every wrestling fan. Maybe it's not necessarily a match, but for you, what is the greatest moment in the history of wrestling? The moment for you that you saw this happen and you said to yourself, this is why I'm a fan of this type of entertainment or this sport or this type of show. What was the moment that stood out to you as like the number one moment in your heart in wrestling?
One night, let me see, I could say, I was watching Saturday night's main event when it was Hulk Hogan versus Mr. Perfect for the title. And in that match, it was going back and forth, and it was a good match. And then when Mr. Perfect had put Hogan in a perfect plex, it's not like Hulk Hogan kicked out. He didn't. Mr. Perfect let him go. And right there and then I thought he had Hogan beat, but he let him go and was just like, nah, I'm going to toy him around some more, then I'm going to beat him. And it's just like it backfired, and Hogan ended up winning the match. And that's when I knew I ended up liking wrestling forever. And then on top of that, and it started off with me start liking guys that was heel. And Mr. Perfect was the first guy I liked that was as a bad guy.
That's a fantastic memory, and I know it's true because it's not like you called out some huge WrestleMania moment that everybody knows about. You called out a Saturday night main event match that probably maybe only you and the entire group would remember that specific match, but it was something that was special to you. It was a moment that meant something to you, and that was the thing that happened that made you say, I'm going to be watching this for the rest of my life. And I'm happy that you are, brother, and I'm happy that you found your way into the RWT family and on to this podcast. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight, Koshawn.
I'm glad to be there, man. Thank you. Thanks a lot, man.
No
Hope
problem.
to be there once again or whenever next time we be on here.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back, man. You were very entertaining, and the thing about it is, I like talking to the young guys and talking about what's going on today, but I also like to talk to anybody who grew up like me watching wrestling from back in the day. You know, I've had conversations with guys like you, guys like the Belt God, Eric L. White, guys like our Undertaker, Paul Morales. These guys who can talk deep about war games and the prestige of certain titles and back with in the days of the territories before Vince McMahon took over everything. Like, it's good to know the history of wrestling, to be able to explain these things and know the origins of it. So for me, sir, this was an absolute pleasure, and I will have you back on anytime.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, man. You have a good rest of your night.
You too now.
All right, bye-bye. Well, there you have it, folks. That was my interview with Coshawn Perkins. Hope you enjoyed that. That is a brother whose well of wrestling knowledge runs deep. And it's always good to talk old school wrestling, because I feel like all we ever do about the new stuff is complain about it. But whenever people talk about the old school wrestling, you never hear people complaining, really. I mean, people just kind of look fondly upon it. Or, if nothing else, maybe they complained at the time, but they didn't realize how good they had it until we got to where we are today. Either way, of course, I love the product, and I love that interview with Coshawn. So thank you again for coming on the show, my man. Man, not too many announcements. Just hope you enjoyed it, and definitely make sure that you continue to tune in to WinXT, hosted by Brian Green. He's doing a fantastic job. And Moses Marquez with Smack Talk and his New Japan show. That guy is working overtime to make sure you guys have a bunch of good wrestling stuff coming straight to your ears. And I have it on good authority that these two guys are working together to come up with some sort of crossover WinXT Smack Talk show. I don't know who's going to be a guest on whose show. I don't know if they're going to be talking NXT or SmackDown Live, but I know that those two guys are going to be getting together soon to collaborate and bring their voices together on one show and one platform for your listening pleasure. So everybody look out for that. And of course, I'm hard at work on the RWT magazine with our awesome cover girl for the first month, which will be in January, and her name is Jessica Gonzalez. Thank you so much, Jessica, for being the cover girl, and I look forward to being able to interview you for that cover story. Also, anybody who wants to write an article for that magazine, let me know. I'd love to have you guys submit some stuff to me, and we could put it in there. It's gonna have some articles about some of the members of our group, and it's gonna have some articles about wrestlers. And it's kind of like, if you say, hey, I want to write about this thing, write it up, send it to me. I'll toss in some pictures. I'll give you credit for what you wrote, and we will get something good put together. But that's all I got for you today, boys and girls. I got that's Moses Marquez's line. I got that stuck in my head. I listen to his show all the time. Sorry, Moses, don't mean to steal your gimmick. That's all I got for you, ladies and germs. I will see you guys pretty soon here with another episode of the RWT Podcast. I don't know who my next guest will be. I'll figure it out. But Robert Davis still owes me one, and a couple other people. So we'll get it taken care of. But for now, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week, and I will catch you down the road.
It's always